Hey, Noah.
Hey.
No, you cannot sit there. You're too close. Get over there. There. Sorry.
Lord have mercy.
Seems kind of silly to use this. I'm sure y'all can hear my voice without using the microphone. Good morning.
Good
So happy to see everybody here today. Yeah, if you have a cell phone, if you could please mute it, silence it, whatever it, so it doesn't go off with your rock and roll music during the service. Thank you. So we have Cherie and Bill here this morning to give us some wonderful music, and Dr. Maurita will be our speaker today. Anything else you need to know? No? No joy song, sorry. Can't sing quite yet.
Oh, nice to see you all here. I have to turn on my microphone. Oh, I shouldn't hear me. There. Welcome. So wonderful to be together this day after 4th of July, celebrating the colors and the emblems of freedom up here. This is the time of our service when I talk about the Bible. Pluck some of the wonderful jewels of wisdom that it has within it. And today I wanted to talk about a quote from Zephaniah, the 3rd chapter. The Lord is in the midst of thee, thou shalt not see evil anymore. Thou shalt not see evil. Well, we look around us, we see, oh my God, look at that, that's despicable, this is awful, that, yuck, etc., etc. We name it. We name it evil. And yet, Zephaniah is reminding us that the Lord is in the midst of us. And we say that a little differently. We say God is omnipresent. Within, without, throughout everything. That is the basic idea in divine science. Everything springs from that. But thou shalt not see evil anymore. Evil is what we name it. We say, oh, that's bad, that's evil. This is reprehensible, that's terrible. But this is inviting us to see God in the midst of it, so that we do not have to name evil anymore. What we do is we see within that circumstance, that interaction, that event, we see within it the seeds of possibility, of change, of God manifesting right there. So it isn't evil anymore. It is an opportunity for better, for greatness, for goodness. See, right in the beginning, the second chapter of Genesis, man was invited by God to name everything, name the animals, name it all. And indeed, we continue to name things. And we name things good, and we name things bad, and we name things, oh, helpful to me, and we name things that's annoying. But if we decide to name things differently, to not name them evil, to not name them impossible, to not name them irritating, frustrating, then they take on another aspect entirely. They take on the realization the Lord is in the midst of thee, is in the midst of that. Whew, big difference, huge difference. And it changes us. It releases us from that onus, that dark thought, that dark situation, that irritating or impossible predicament. Name it something else. Name it a possibility for love, a possibility for greater understanding, a possibility for greater change. Thank you, Zephaniah. We don't hear from him too much anymore. One of the Old Testament prophets. But he said something today to us that helps us remember and focus on the truth. Things are the way we name them. You name them something else, and they have a very different effect on us. Amen. Shall we say our statement of being, which is right here? God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God, and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And following that, we're going to do a tune that was made popular by back in the late 60s after Martin Luther King was assassinated. Written by Dr. Billy Taylor. It's called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free.
Amen.
And fit you were saying.
This is the portion of our service where we do something that we don't always do during our lives, and that is to just get still. Some of us make a habit of doing that daily, but many of us don't. And so this is the time when we just check our bodies, starting. We'll close our eyes, of course. We check our bodies and see where the tensions are, and discover so often that we're frowning and didn't even know it. And we stop frowning. And our jaws are tight. And we release them. So our faces are relaxed. We go down to our shoulders, where we carry so much tension. They're more relaxed now. Let them go down and hang from our sockets, the arms and the forearms and hands. We release, release, release. Our backs, our chests, our stomach, buttocks, legs and feet. We gradually scan it all. Let it go. And it feels so much more comfortable. That inner peace gradually filling our whole bodies. Even further, allowing the thoughts to get still. absorbed in a dimension of ourselves that we don't too often contact. That inner part of us, deep, deep within. So that silence begins to fill us. And peace begins to fill us. And perhaps thoughts wander in concerning people we love, people we're concerned about, and we send them love. We send them blessings, knowing that our thoughts have power, and that we can touch others in the most blessed way, just by sending love and knowing that God is with them. God is with them as the activity of solutions and inspiration and understanding and the power to get through a difficult situation. We said this to the same attitude of love and assurance that God is right where they are. To neighbors and co-workers, people we don't see very often or hear from. We send them to our whole country as it struggles with this terrible plague. We send it out to our armed forces scattered around the world, to our friends in the world, as well as those whom we do not count as friends. For the only way to make them friends is to send love, which heals all things. So in that peace, what we send out to all the people of the world, the governments of the world, our own government, people scattered far and wide, people who are ill, people who are well, people who demonstrate for greater freedom, and those who sit at home and either disagree or agree with them. We send it out. And because what we give out, we always receive. All that love, all that blessing comes back to us. In the next 90 seconds, I invite you to send out love to friends and not so much friends, to others scattered around our tiny planet, all who need it, and invite it back to ourselves. The blessing, the good, the love. Starting right now. Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And each and every time we rest in the presence of God, we feel less labored. The heaviness falls from our shoulders. Somehow the breath of life, the breath of newness, of hope, of faith fills us. And indeed all is well. We can see the way. It's made clear. And for that and so much more, we give thanks. Amen. And now, shall we say the beautiful translation of the Lord's Prayer from the Aramaic? Dr. Errico did this and he did it beautifully. Together, Our Father, who is everywhere, your name is sacred, your kingdom is come, your will is throughout the earth, even as it is throughout the universe. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and you forgive us our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. And you let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error. Because yours are the kingdom, the power, and the song and praise from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Amen. Well, this morning I'm going to be talking about freedom. Freedom. Kind of appropriate for this weekend, isn't it? Well, a number of years ago, my husband Eddie and I and members of our family were having dinner on board a ship in the Mediterranean. And an announcement came over the loudspeaker that this was a special American holiday. A huge American flag was lowered from the balcony, and the orchestra in the room struck up the music, America the Beautiful. And about 3/4 of the people in that room spontaneously stood up and put their hands on their hearts and started singing. It was just a moving moment. And I thought to myself, you can take the people out of America, but you can't take America out of the people. No. There weren't any fancy fireworks and no speeches, nothing like that. Just a song. But it was a touching moment far from home. A remembrance that we value everything America stands for. Its freedoms, the things we enjoy as Americans, freedom of speech and freedom to worship or not to worship as we wish. Freedom of the press and of assembly and to bear arms. Freedom to have a fair trial. To have a free education. That's one of the things in the Bill of Rights. To live and travel anywhere we want to in our country and to work there. Of course, we're not moving around quite that much now, but hopefully soon. Freedom is something that most of us have just taken for granted as we grew up. But the largely peaceful marches that have taken place in our country since the appalling death of George Floyd makes clear that that feeling of freedom that many of us just take for granted isn't experienced by everyone. This has to change. The simple truth is that we are all connected. When any minority group experiences a lack of freedom to have a good education, to have ready access to nourishing, healthy foods. There are such things as food deserts in our country, in our own city. A freedom to feel safe in their home and their neighborhood, to have health care easily available, then all of us are negatively affected. If people aren't confident that there is an opportunity for them to get work that pays a decent wage, if they feel that their needs are not of importance to their elected representatives, if they can't hope and dream for having a better experience in life, more of the things that are good in their lives than they have in the past, then they are not feeling free. If their right to vote is curtailed or made difficult in any way, if the best and brightest among us are curtailed in any way, no matter what their country of origin or their religion or the color of their skin or their sexual orientation, if the most gifted among us cannot have the opportunity to give that gift to all the rest of us, then all of the rest of us are less free. If everyone doesn't experience these freedoms, then all of us have lost our freedoms to some degree. All of us are the poorer. We are, after all connected to one another. We're connected economically and health-wise, culturally, socially, and certainly spiritually. Whatever happens to one of us happens to all of us, because we are all children of God. All of us. We are inseparably united because we are one with God and God is everywhere. We have been given free will by God Himself. Free will. I'm convinced, as I said a couple of weeks ago, that greater good than we can imagine is going to result from this groundswell of insistence that everybody has to be treated fairly and equally. In all ways. But as great as these outer freedoms are, as important as they are, there are some things that are of even greater importance, certain inner freedoms, that we can only give to ourselves. Nobody can give them to us. We have to take them. And what am I talking about? Well, Jesus considered one of these freedoms so important that He put it right in the Lord's Prayer. Put it right there. And the freedom I'm talking about is the freedom we gain when we forgive another person. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Right there. Of course, there's very little said in the Old Testament about forgiving other people. I have a hard time finding it. And how much different perhaps the Middle East would be if that was emphasized by Abraham and the prophets. But it wasn't. But when it came to the subject about forgiving others, Peter must have thought that forgiving somebody else 7 times would be incredibly generous. And the master corrected him. And it said that, no, you have to forgive 70 times 7. An unlimited number of times. You have to keep forgiving. Whether the cause of our inability or our unwillingness to forgive is based on fear or just rage at somebody, or perhaps what you feel is justified anger. Every time that person, that situation comes to mind, it triggers this surge, however, because the body-mind connection is perfect. It triggers, the unforgiveness does, triggers the neurotransmitter epinephrine, and it releases all itself into the bloodstream. And what epinephrine does is increase blood pressure, increases the stress levels of the body, it raises the heart rate, and over time, that can all damage the blood vessels. That's what epinephrine does. That's what unforgiveness does. That's the part it does to us physically. But then mentally, it is equally dangerous because it launches us into that old broken record syndrome. We compulsively think about those things over and over and over again. She said, he said, they did this, and no, they didn't do this, and around and around and around it goes. One of our wonderful church members faced this mental and emotional quandary in his life. He recently experienced a stroke and heart surgery when his sister was stabbed to death in her own bed by her estranged husband. What was the result? Of course, he was filled with grief and anger and unforgiveness toward this ex-brother-in-law. Rage toward him, probably. His feelings were so intense, actually, that he experienced this pain in his chest. And his mind, of course, was held in the grip of that broken record syndrome, the details of his sister's death. How the 4-year-old couldn't wake mommy up, and how his own mother found her dead. Round and around and around and around. And he gradually noticed that his own healing process from the stroke had stopped progressing. And he realized he had to forgive. He had to forgive. It took several weeks of mental and emotional work, but he was able to forgive his former brother-in-law. And the pain in his chest disappeared. His recovery from the stroke and the heart operation started progressing again. Jesus, of course, approached forgiveness as a spiritual lesson that every soul must learn. But he was absolutely right in emphasizing this. But in addition, forgiving others blesses us with greater freedom, physically, mentally, emotionally, as well as spiritually. Another inner freedom that we can give ourselves comes right out of Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. And it is, never take anything personally. It might seem that other person's words or acts are deliberately and sometimes maliciously designed to hurt us, to denigrate us, even to destroy us. But the truth of the matter is that what people say and do is a reflection of their inner world. Their opinions, their assumptions, the pressures on them, the fears that they have, their misunderstandings, their upbringing, the state of their health, whether it happens to be mental or physical, can come out of physical pain. It has very, very little to do with us. Do not allow yourself to get sucked into some other person's dynamics. Don't allow it. If their criticism, though, their disapproval strikes a nerve, it might be helpful. In that, it might point to something that we need to work on and that would benefit us from working on. But when we listen to somebody else's tirade without inwardly agreeing with it, and we can listen with a beginning of inner calm to that, it really is a result of knowing that those words, those acts, might be aimed at us, but they are truly a reflection of somebody else's inner world, somebody else's limitations, their negative imaginations, their fears, their problems. And as we do that, as we have listened from a place of calm, knowing it really has very little to do with us, then we are giving ourselves an invaluable freedom that nobody else can give to us. Never take anything personally. But finally, and I truly believe that it is the greatest gift, the greatest freedom of all, is a wholehearted belief in God's unconditional love for us. Every one of us. What we think of as the worst and the best. It's the belief in the spiritual truth that every one of us is precious, unique, and irreplaceable, right where we are. Now, these are pretty words, indeed, but words can't begin to convey the reality behind these words. Words about God's love for us. We do hear it reflected, though, when people have had a profound near-death experience. What they describe is, just a big variety of experiences, sometimes a tunnel, sometimes seeing deceased loved ones or religious figures, even pets they loved. They report seeing gardens and meadows of exquisite flowers of the most unforgettable, unearthly colors, and many, many other things, but something like 15% or 20% report a more profound reality, and that is of being enveloped in a peace that they have never felt, and a light and a love that is so all-consuming that they never, ever want to leave this wonderful place, this wonderful feeling again. And on being told that they must return to this world, because this is a near-death experience, they have to go back to those physical bodies. They argue, they refuse, many of them, refuse to leave this place of perfect peace and love, but then they find themselves back in the world, back in that body. But they have been profoundly, inwardly changed by feeling the love of God, by knowing that light, that peace, the joy that comes from it. No, it isn't just certain people, it's people of every race, creed, color, ethnic background, people who have absolutely no interest in spiritual things whatsoever, atheists, agnostics, people who have attempted suicide, people who have just totally focused on the material things of life, getting as much as they possibly can, people for whom science is God. Well, that's all they believe in, and on and on. But once they have experienced it, they cannot not believe in the love of God. Some years ago, it was estimated like something like 13 million people in the United States had had a near-death experience. Well, that number did not include anybody outside of the United States, and it did not include anybody under 18. And people all over the world, especially with these new techniques for resuscitation, many, many people have experienced it. And a great number of them being infants even, babies, children, teens, that we're not counted in that 13 million. So we know that many, many more than 13 million people have had this experience, and a percentage of them have felt that love of God. For them, it's not just pretty words. I have debated over and over and over again about whether I should talk about this. But I have felt God's love on 2 occasions. And the only problem with it is that whenever I revisit this feeling, the waterworks come on every single time I grab Kleenex. One of the things that amazed me about this was that every other feeling I've ever had, and strong feelings, everything else was like nothing compared to that. It'd be like trying to compare one of these little birthday candles to 1,000 suns. No. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Oh, but you've been meditating so long. No. Sometimes meditation is good, sometimes it doesn't go very far at all. So, I'm not special. It can happen to anyone. But the point is that God's love for each and every one of us is real. It is realer than real. It is truth. And it is a truth that frees us. To believe to our very depths that we are one with an omnipresent God who loves us unconditionally is the ultimate freedom. Today, as we celebrate freedom, we remember these things. We try to remember that we are all one. We are all one. What happens to one, what happens to our brother or sister in God, happens to us in some way. We must forgive. We never take anything personally because it's somebody else's dynamics that is going off like a firecracker. But finally, to know, if we can't know it from ourselves, and we know it from people who've had near-death experiences, we know that God loves each of us. That's the greatest freedom of all. Let's go with it. We let peace fill us and envelop us, because these freedoms must be experienced by each and all, sooner or later. They must come forth, because God has given us freedom. And while we have not known that we must share that freedom, we are learning it now, if never before. We give thanks that we have the new vision of what can be. What can be. What we will insist on coming forth for others as well as ourselves. But we also claim these inner freedoms, the freedom that comes with forgiveness. The freedom that comes with knowing that we never take anything personally. What's going on in somebody else is going on in them. It need not go on in us. And finally, that we are loved. Loved. In a way that we can't begin to imagine, but hopefully will experience ourselves. And for freedom today, tomorrow, every day. We say thank you, beloved Father, Mother, God. Amen. Now it is time for the blessing of the gifts, and we thank you in advance for your tithes and offerings that make our church services possible. Shall we read it together? Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God. And now we want to close our service by knowing. Excuse me. Calm down.
Got some announcements here.
You have some announcements.
Yes, ma'am.
today. And I have one too.
Okay. Good morning. First off, I want to thank Bill and Cherie for the beautiful music today. And Rick had the day off, and when he has another day off, I'll be calling you again. Bill was one of our favorite people, and I love him so much. And one of these days soon, we're going to hug him. So I'm waiting for that. So, and thank you. He teased this morning. He said he found Cherie on the side of the street. So, would you find her again, please? So, thank you, Cherie, for being here. It was great music. Important thing today is birthday Sunday. Last time in June when we started back, we were outside and we sang outside. We were inside. We will be doing no singing today, even though we have masks on. So Bill's going to play Happy Birthday. You can hum if you want, but we're not singing. But our birthday people are Tom Dean, Rick Milan, Jana Martin, Wendy Greer, Doug Watts, and Martha. Doug, Wendy, and Rick are here. So happy birthday to you all, and we'll sing to you another day. But Bill's going to play. There is ice cream, cake next door, and coffee, so please come and have some of that, and Zoe will get it ready for you. The flowers today are sponsored by Laurel for Rick's birthday. Happy birthday, Rick. Thank you. They're very beautiful, and so thank you. As I announced the last few weeks, the ballots for the re-election of 2 officers are here. If you're here today and you're a member, vote, and if not, I know there's some people that are still not comfortable about coming to church, and we're going to mail those ballots out, so they'll have them getting it to the end of the month to get them back in. So anyhow, the ballots over here, just drop them in the basket with the money, and you can drop some money in too if you want to. Well, we're happy with that. But anyhow, to reinforce some of the rules that we've set up is, of course, you wear your mask, and the chairs are situated as best we could, 6 feet apart. But you come in the front door, when you leave, even though you go to the annex and you have dessert or whatever, please go out the side door. It keeps us from having so many people touching the doors and everything. So we try to leave them open as much as possible. So I appreciate you following the rules as much as possible. Nancy's class is starting back tomorrow night, 6:30. You've been in contact, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Okay. Your class is still going on 6:30, journaling class Tuesday nights. Wednesday still Maurita's class and coffee at the Mill Mountain Coffee House. And you have an announcement about your IONS meeting, I'm sure?
Yes, I did want to mention something about that. We had scheduled a speaker from out of town to come to Roanoke and speak on Sunday as well. And her name is Joan Fowler. And very, very interesting woman. Of course, an experiencer. She, over the last few days, I decided that it would not be a good idea at this time to have her come into Roanoke because I just questioned how many people would come out to see her. And I would like to do it at a time, perhaps in the early fall, when she is able to come some Sunday and some Friday and Sunday, I should say, and spend some time with us, answer all sorts of questions, and have a much more comfortable and leisurely visit with us. So this coming Friday, we have access to all the speeches, all the seminars that were held in 2019 at the IONS conference in Pennsylvania. And there are, oh my gosh, 20 of them, probably 20 different ones. And we invite those who would like to come, and we will do it in this room so that we'll be able to be separated and everybody will need to wear their masks. But the people who come on Friday at 7 o'clock will be the ones who decide which one of these talks they would like to hear. And that will be projected on our brand new large screen TV that we recently got. It would be a real pleasure to see that there and of course have discussion about it. And if we have time for 2 of these talks, then that'll be fine too. But it will be the decision of the people who arrive come in. So that's 7 o'clock this coming Friday night. I'll be sending out an email reminder to people and calling others. But keep it in mind and come and hear what some of these really fine speakers have to say. Thank you.
And speaking of our TV and our new CD player, I told the board that I needed some new equipment because every time we're going to do something, it's got to be pieced together. So Bob Dieter went ahead and bought it for us, and we had till the end of July to pay for it. And so we had a check last week that paid for it. So just what y'all know is all done. So God is good.
Yeah.
God is good all the time. So. Hope everybody enjoyed their holiday, and as Doug gave a message last week about change, and Maurita gave one about freedom. Thank both of you because it was well needed, and change is coming, and freedom's coming for everybody sooner or later.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Jan.
All right.
And all we're left to do is a blessing. And so we bow our heads for just a moment and to know that we are blessed moment by moment and day by day by the presence of a God who loves us and will guide, protect. All we have to do is turn to Him. And with God is the greatest freedom, the greatest positive change that we can imagine. And for that we say thank you, beloved friend, guide, father and mother. Amen.